a pattern that went real fast, probably because it has a quick feedback loop, was the 20, 25, 30-year experiment where our culture abolished breastfeeding. You know, from the early 50s through about 70 to 75, you know, our culture decided that this old, you know, Neanderthal barbaric notion of breastfeeding was just that. And we raised a generation of asthmatic sufferers on Enfamil and Similac, you know. And I mean, who would have thought in the 1950s, when we were running pell-mell against this, you know, against this old, come on, get rid of that, that's old, that's a Ludditism, you know, breastfeeding babies, and embracing this new scientific, you know, technologically, you know, life in a bottle. Then by the 1970s, we would have Lamaze classes and La Leche League, right? And fathers-to-be that went, you know, learned how to breathe and wanted to see it. I've often thought that, you know, probably one of the greatest squanderings of resources in our whole nation's history was that period when we didn't use all those breaths that didn't get used. And of course, now we know that there's a direct link between breast cancer and nursing. You know, and those statistics are coming in every day. Huge. Well, you know, it's one of these, duh. I mean, do we really think that we're so clever that something so basic to survival, to existence, to appreciating the fundamentals, the very foundations of life, we can just cavalierly disregard as if, oh, we're smarter than that. So that was one of the fastest ones. But we're still inventing them, you know, from genetically modified organisms to, you know, additional herbicides, pesticides, chemicals, and things like that. So I want to look for just a minute at a couple of these patterns because they're so profound when we put them in historical context. One of the first ones, I think, is cheap energy. I want you to think about, not so long ago, how expensive and laborious transportation was. You know, when transportation was in a sailboat or behind a draft animal, a horse, a mule, an ox, a yak, a camel, okay? It was laborious. And you simply couldn't move the product. You couldn't move anything like we did with that. And so nature developed this wonderful carbon recycling program. You know, nature doesn't move carbon very far. About the farthest nature moves carbon is about as far as, you know, so an herbivore eats grass here and poops over here. Or a bird eats a seed over here and poops over there. Or maybe a wind comes up and blows the trees, the leaves that have fallen off in your yard over to the neighbor's yard. Now, that's about as far as nature moves carbon. Nature doesn't move carbon very far. So the way soil is built throughout history is in real-time carbon recycling. So you've got the sun up here. The sun grows the plant. The plant then grows, dies, decomposes, feeds the soil life. Soil life, the decomposition secretes carbonic acid, which percolates up through the soil, encounters moisture, turns into carbonic acid. Carbonic acid melts the minerals in the soil, adds minerals to the soil. Now the soil becomes more fertile, so it can grow more biomass, which can better metabolize solar energy and grow bigger, more fertile plants. And this cycle just goes over and over and over and over again. And herbivores in nature are the pruners. Because here's the deal. Forage grows in an S curve. See my S sigmoid curve? Okay, S curve. Call this down here, this is diaper grass, teenage grass, nursing home grass. Okay? So it's got 3 stages of growth. All right? Now, if my job is to stimulate the conversion of solar energy into decomposable biomass, carbon, of what of those 3 stages do I want the plant in most of the time? Teenage. Thank you. Boy, they're pretty smart on Bainbridge Island. You can believe how many groups look at teenage. You know, if you keep it in diaper phase, that's called overgrazing, then it can never build up a head of steam, and it just stays, you know, idling. And if you let it go out here, the nursing home phase, go into senescence and turn brown, the plant dies, and it doesn't continue to metabolize solar energy. And in fact, it essentially just desiccates, vaporizes off, and sends all the carbon back into the atmosphere. So just like a viticulturalist would prune a vineyard, or an orchardist would prune an orchard, to stimulate healthy, vigorous, fresh, abundant, verdant growth, so the herbivore is nature's pruner to restart that teenage fast biomass accumulation cycle. So I call the herbivore nature's biomass accumulation restart button. But we live in a day in which the herbivore is being demonized, criminalized, and marginalized for, creating methane. All right, first of all, let me repent in sackcloth and ashes for all of the abuse that domestic livestock has done over the years due to mismanagement. But it's not the domestic livestock problem. It is the manager of the domestic livestock problem that has a conquistador mentality and will not look humbly at the pattern of nature and say, how did nature build the soil? And when we begin, that's why on our farm we move these cows every single day to a new paddock, so that generally 99% of the farm is resting between cycles, just like the Serengeti rests between wildebeest cycles due to the fly and the lion predation that moves them on, that makes them move, mob, and mow, so that it rests before they come back, and it goes through this fast metabolic cycle. And so on our farm, the average cow days in Augusta County, where I live, at our rainfall and degree days and temperature and climate and all that, is 80 cow days per acre. A cow days are 1 cow a week a day. In our county, it's average 80 cow days per acre. On our farm, we're averaging more than 400 cow days per acre, and we've never planted a seed or plowed or bought a bag of chemical fertilizer in 50 years. Okay? These patterns work. Well, the fact is that when transportation was